Washington's Attorney General is suing the private for-profit company that operates the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma. The facility houses detainees going through immigration proceedings, many of whom are facing deportation. Now, according to the suit, GEO Group is paying those detainees as little as $1 a day to do things like clean or cook, alleging that sometimes they get paid with just snacks. So like chips or candy or something for the work that they're doing. So joining us this morning is Attorney General Bob Ferguson to talk about that suit. So legally speaking, what is wrong with them paying detainees with chips or candy to do work?
Well, the problem is that they're a private for-profit corporation, and the folks who are at the detention center are not facing criminal charges. It's civil proceedings. So for those reasons, they're like any other business that operates in Washington State. You got to follow our laws, and that includes our minimum wage laws.
Now, they say that this is a voluntary work program and that your lawsuit is completely bogus. So if it is a voluntary work program, couldn't these inmates or these detainees, they're not inmates, choose to just say, well, I'd like to work, I'd like to do something, or I don't want to?
Yeah, if that's their argument in court, they're going to lose badly. Think of it this way. If you run a restaurant in our state, we have a minimum wage. It's $11 an hour. You can't say as a defense, I'm only paying $5 an hour because folks are volunteering to come bus tables or wash dishes and they agree to the $5 an hour. No, if you're a private for-profit corporation, you're running a business operation in our state, you got to pay the minimum wage. You can't say folks are simply volunteering to work at my place of business.
So I want to talk about the extent of this because we've had this detention facility for what, 12 years?
Yeah, they've been operating there since 2005, I believe, in Tacoma. That's correct.
And they have 140 other facilities across the entire country. There's been some complaints at a facility out of Colorado. So if you have an issue with how they've been paying detainees, why did it take you so long to figure it out?
Well, I've been Attorney General for 5 years. 2 years ago, I created a civil rights unit in my office. We didn't have one before. So we did not have a team that did affirmative work in this way in the AG's office for many, many decades. So that team's been busy, as you know, with some things with the federal government. But this is an issue we've been paying attention since we first started the Civil Rights Unit. We've been doing investigation for a while, talking to detainees, looking at the contract GEO has with the federal government to run the facility, and we decided this was the right time to bring this litigation once we're prepared and we've completed our investigation.
So when you guys talk to these detainees, and I know some of your attorneys have, what are kind of the stories that they're weaving for you about feeling like they have to do this work and the compensation that they're getting?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of both. Some folks say they feel pressure to do the work. Others say they do volunteer for it. They do receive, one thing that's consistent is it's $1 a day for their work. Sometimes it's not even that. They get paid, as you mentioned before, in chips or candy. And again, this is an out-of-state for-profit corporation. Their revenue is in the billions each year. It's a large corporation, and they're running a private institution here for folks who are facing civil proceedings, not criminal. So there's no exception under our wage rules in Washington State for these folks. So it's very different than a government-run jail. There you don't have to pay the minimum wage. For a privately run institution like this, you do.
But why not? I mean, I think that's one of the things that struck me about this is we don't pay our own state prison inmates. Sure. And granted, you're right, we're talking about criminal versus civil, but we have them, you know, locked up and they're doing jobs. They're fighting fires for pennies.
Yes.
So if we're going to kind of be this state that's like fair pay and it's not forced labor, then why doesn't that carry over to our state prison system?
Well, so it's state prison system it applies to, but again, this is a private for-profit corporation, right, that runs a facility for individuals who are not facing criminal charges. Many of these individuals are returned back to our community. There's folks who've been in our state for many, many years. They have families here. They're seeking asylum from a foreign country. So it's a very different situation. So to keep in mind, these folks, GEO, they're making millions of dollars every year exploiting these detainees who are at this facility. That's not okay. And also it takes away jobs from people outside the facility. If they had to pay them minimum wage, which they should, that opens up job opportunities for people throughout our state and throughout our community.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting aspect to the argument, which is if you don't care about the detainees and how they're being treated and how they're being paid, these jobs could be going to people in our community.
Absolutely. And to be clear, they run this facility outside of the guards. The facility is basically run on the labor of these detainees, the cleaning the restrooms, the laundry, you name it. This is being done by the detainees for $1 a day. Basically, that's just money profits for this company.
So let's say that you go forward and you win this lawsuit. How do you rectify something like this? I mean, you guys have been saying you want all this money that they would have otherwise had to pay, but we're talking about years and years, hundreds, if not thousands of detainees who were getting this $1 a day or chips or candy. So if at the end of the day, a court sides with you, how does GEO Group make this right?
So what we're asking for is for them to return essentially their ill-gotten gains, the money they profited off the labor of these detainees. So a court would have to calculate using information provided by GEO about how many folks worked, how many hours that was, do the math on what they should have paid. That's the amount they need to return back to the state of Washington.
To the state or to the detainees who had to do that labor? Are you going to give it back to the people who worked for $1 a day?
Yeah, if we can identify those folks as an organization, that's what we always try to do, is get money back in the pockets of folks who are directly harmed. There may be some challenges here because the actions go back a number of years. Some of those folks may no longer be in the state. They may be hard to find, but that is the goal. If we can do that, that's absolutely what we try to do.
All right, it's interesting. It's going to be an interesting one to watch,
Yeah.
and I think that people have, you've had a lot of lawsuits lately,
Sure.
a lot of high-profile ones,
Sure.
the Trump administration into some of these, particularly around immigration. I know that a lot of people are watching very closely, and this one theoretically, would it impact a lot of these other facilities that this company runs, 140 across the country?
Possibly, although keep in mind, each state has different laws when it comes to their minimum wage. In Washington State, we have a very strong minimum wage law that has very few exceptions. So each state's a little bit different. So the broader implications are harder to tell, but would have big implications for this facility right here in Washington State.
Yeah, so the states would have to look at that individually.
Exactly right.
Bob Ferguson, we always appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brandy.
For being here. We'll be back after this.